Welcome everybody to the presentation. Thank you for coming. I know you have a lot to cover, so it's a great honor to share some of the history of the Magic Bus with you. The title of the presentation, welcome, come on in. The title of the presentation is Too Much Magic Bus, and I liked the words of the song because it sort of reflected the philosophy of why I built it and how I built it. Everything was too much. But in audio, is everything really too much? Not really. We have this passion and we have this pursuit of achieving musical realism, and we can only asymptotically approach that. So really nothing is ever too much. It's about the passion of respecting the music and recreating it to the best of our abilities. The bus, surprisingly, covers a number of realms of industries and sort of combines them and marries them. And you see the bus is the central focus, but we have home audio, pro audio, musicians, industrial equipment, skilled trades, the marine industry, the automotive industry, and the audio press, because I've also authored a number of articles for car audio publications. So the bus is this beautiful entity that combines seemingly disparate industries into one cohesive message, which is serve the music, love the music. Here's an overview of the bus. Major manufacturers value the bus at $1 million. And there's a breakdown of what the bus is, but there's been quite a bit of publicity on the forums, about 700,000 views on 90 threads on do-it-yourself mobile audio.
You have sunk $1 million into that thing?
Well, I'm getting to what I've sunk into it.
Yeah.
My capital investiture is about $300K. I don't like to disclose that.
So it's just a valuation.
Yeah, but now it's in the
How much was the basic van from Mercedes?
About 43.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the van, is the least of my concerns.
Yeah.
but principal to the achievement of the audio goals that I had, which was to build the finest mobile acoustic room. We'll talk more about that later. There's about $52,000 worth of product that I received through sponsorship. About $70,000, $65,000 actually, of actual materials and equipment besides audio that went into making the audio system. That includes resins, fiberglass cloth, electrical connections, cables, wires, housekeeping stuff, if you will. The stuff ancillary to the audio system. So there's about $66,000 supporting that. There's about $52,000 in sponsorship. There was 14,700 hours of labor, roughly, to build it. We'll talk more about that. The system is 4,620 watts. It has 9 loudspeakers acting as 7. 3,000 pounds, which includes all the acoustical treatments and the cabling and the weight of the enclosures and the components. Maximum current draw is theoretically 556 amps. Yeah, so that's quite a bit of power.
How do you generate that much power?
I have a 4D marine battery in the back.
So it's all run on battery?
Yeah, and then we have an auxiliary battery charger.
So you don't turn the motor on, you just run it off battery?
That's correct. For critical listening, the motor introduces noise and vibration. Yeah. And when you hear the transparency and the noise floor, or the lack of the noise floor, and the dynamics, you'll appreciate why I don't run the engine when we listen. There's over 250 autographs from musicians, and we'll go over those later. 76 months to fabricate it, 18 magazine articles. The bus has now appeared at 7 major home audio shows and audio shows. The bus is the first mobile audio system to appear at a home audio show. So was quite an honor. We'll talk more about that. And finally, all of this leads down to one magic bus. Started in the beginning with Peter Lufrano. He saw my first Volkswagen camper van and said, "I'd like to get behind your work." So he provided some products. Then shortly thereafter, Timber Cable came on board, WBT. Then Stinger came on board in 2004. Radix Wire came on board. They make silicone jacketed, high-performance tinned copper wire, multi-strand, very high-quality power cable, substantially beyond welding cable, which is commonly used in large gauge applications. Became a certified ASCA judge in 2004. And I received the Magic Bus. I ordered it from Stuttgart, Germany in the summer of 2004 and received it in December. So I waited 5 months to get the bus. Had no idea what it would cost. And when I received it, it was 50 miles on it. The next day, I stripped the back and began work on it. Shortly thereafter, Cascade Audio became a sponsor. Shortly thereafter, well, about a year later, I guess, Genesis Automotive Amplifiers became a sponsor. There are 3 on the subwoofer at 3,300 watts and 3 on the front stage for about 1,200 watts. And that's not peak, that's measured, that's birth sheet measured RMS power.
Say that again.
That's not our peak power, that's RMS, root mean square power, the average capable power output into 4 ohms.
How much? How many watts RMS?
Oh, the tweeters each get 150 watts.
Okay.
The mid-ranges get 150 watts. The mid-basses, the woofers in the doors, get 325.
And how much current to the front speakers?
I'd have to stop and think about it.
Most of the current goes to the bass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just divide the wattage by 12 nominally, and that'll give you a rough idea. So if there's about 1,200 watts to the front, there's about 100 amps of current going to the front sound stage, and 3,300, 400 and I think 80 amps to the subwoofer. And that's peak. When you play music, it's interesting because the bus has a power station, a marine grade power station. I have multimeters, digital multimeters, which have AC and DC monitoring systems, so I can look at the power consumption. So when I'm playing really loud music, like at 100 decibels, the average power consumption of the system is about 400 or 500 watts. But imagine the dynamic headroom to have 4,000 of it. There's an order of magnitude of power on reserve to deliver the hits, and that leads to a sensational or a remarkable degree of realism.
What is the dynamic range of the system?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the source of the dynamic range of CDs, 96 dB. That's the source. That's ideal. The music typically has what the crest factor is. Usually there's about 20 dB of dynamic range in music, usually from the average level. Is that right, Russ?
How low is
For a lot of pop music, yeah.
Yeah.
How low is the noise floor?
I haven't measured it, but when you listen to it, you'll realize, or I hope you realize that, or appreciate that, it's virtually imperceptible noise floor in combination with wild dynamic transients.
It's very punchy.
I think it's pretty punchy.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions, by the way. It makes it much more interesting. So please, if you have questions along the way, by all means. I would like this to be a sharing sort of experience, just like the bus is. Just fun, casual, share the love.
Are you going to raffle off the amps?
It's not, especially after Steve McCormack helped me modify them, so I think I'm hang tight on those. This is an interesting but important sponsor, Bosch Rexroth, makes industrial extruded aluminum framing. I'm the first car in the mobile audio industry to use aluminum structural framing, and it works as a tremendous supporting infrastructure for the components, the amplifiers and the armoires and many of the housekeeping components in the system. Here's an interesting milestone. May 13th, 2006, car had 13,000 miles on it. I invested 2,200 hours of labor, and I played the first note. And this is the first measured frequency response, which is horrific. This is uneq'd, just guessing with the crossover points and slopes. And so these are pretty interesting milestones. So the van already had 13,000 miles. Hey, welcome, come on in.
So before you change that, John, you say it goes down to 10 hertz. What is the down point at 10 hertz, 6 dB?
Oh, this actually is not a representative curve of the present subwoofer.
Oh, I see.
That actually was no tuning on the subwoofer. But to answer your question directly, not only is my system not down at 10 hertz, it's up 20 dB relative to 1K. And that's an important aspect of the van, is to have a sort of an equal loudness contour to the bass. So if you had flat bass all the way down, it would be inadequate in my estimation. And so it's remarkable that it's up 20, maybe more than 20 dB at 10
So it's
hertz.
like a JBL type curve.
Yes, very much so. And in fact, it has the downward slope at 3 dB per octave from about 2K upward. And it adds a nice, naturalness and smoothness.
Are you using crossovers?
Yeah.
What type of crossover?
It's all digital. It's done in the digital domain. Yeah. The unique thing about the Alpine is it stays in the digital domain all the way through processing, and is at the last minute converted to analog and entering into the amplifiers with the shortest possible interconnects. Some of my interconnects are only this long, and I think the longest interconnect is this long.
Really?
So it's, by design, that's why the electronic console is up front, to shorten the length.
For the front speakers, but what about going to the rear? Well,
I chose a long interconnect and short loudspeaker cables for that application. Because, the alternative is to use a short interconnect and long loudspeaker cables. But I think because the loudspeaker, especially the subwoofer, is taking so much power, I thought it made more sense to use a longer interconnect.
And you said that head end has no storage on it?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
It doesn't store anything, you just put discs?
That's correct. It's been silver discs, DVD, audio, CD, and there is absolutely no...
And DSD?
No, won't do DSD. This was at a time when there was a format war. In fact, it was right before the format war, and Alpine chose to go with DVD audio.
Yeah.
Entertainment engineering, articles by Terry Person. It's a very interesting journal, and Bosch asked me to contribute some articles about the use of aluminum framing, because typically the aluminum framing is used in manufacturing environments. So it was unusual, probably one of the most unusual uses of aluminum framing was to use it in a car stereo. So here's an interesting story. Carlsbad Library, March 11, 2007. We saw the concert by Noel Jukes, world-renowned saxophonist who was down from the Bay Area. I believe we were at Jim Murad's house, and we were, partying and having a good time, and just finished the subwoofer, and I thought, we ought to get Mr. Jukes to autograph this thing. And I just finished it with 10 coats of polyurethane, sanding. It took 3 months to do the finish work on the subwoofer. And we went out to the bus, and everybody said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And we took the Sharpie, and I remember that moment. The Sharpie touched the subwoofer, and it was like, because there's no going back at that point. And that, to me, was a moment of elation, because for me, that was moving forward. I didn't even care about going back. I knew I wanted that to be autographed. And it turned out to be one of the more interesting aspects of the van. And I wanted the band to pay tribute to the musicians, and this was the beginning of that autographing.
And now you have how many autographs?
250 or so. Yeah.
I have a CD from Noel Chutes. It's fabulous, too.
Yeah, isn't
really
he?
Fabulous.
Wow, you would be one of the few to appreciate his artistry, and he is just amazing.
Yeah, he is.
Wow, that's wonderful. Then, shortly after the subwoofer was finished, Steve McCormack, hey Jim, how you doing? Welcome. So, Jim, I'd like to go back to this. Remember this moment at your place?
Yeah, I do.
Wasn't that special?
Well, everything you've done for all these years has been special.
Remember when the Sharpie touched it and everybody went, right? Like you ruined it.
Cows.
And I'm like, no, we blessed it.
I was just listening to Noel's album up in Robert Lee's acoustic Zen room, 321, with these new amplifiers. Jesus Christ, I didn't realize that album was that good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Better than I thought it was.
321.
So then, also, right after Noel Jukes autographed it, I thought, well, who better to autograph it next than my audio mentor, Steve McCormack. He had contributed to the design of the system. Later, he contributed to the voicing of the system. I came to know Steve very well, and I hold him in the highest regard for his just immense audio knowledge and contribution to the industry. And he would come over for dinner, and he'd walk by the garage and see the subwoofer in a partial state of fabrication, and he'd just go like this and look at me, and he'd say, "Johnny, you're nuts." And so when it was finally finished, he said, "I want to hear Flight of the Cosmic Hippo on the sub," and we did. So then he autographed it. Flight of the Cosmic Subwoofer, incredible work, John Steve McCormack. So that was one of the first autographs. This Mr. Marv's Barbecue is an event that a woodworker in the Bay Area, Marv, used to make custom enclosures. Were you guys there? Yeah, Mr. Marv's Barbecue? No? Okay, you look familiar. I thought maybe. Oh. Anyway, big get together. People from the East Coast fly out. Thank you for your attendance. Folks from the East Coast fly out. Magazine writers. It was a big deal. And so I attended the first one with the bus partially completed. Another milestone, at about 30,000 miles after 33 months of fabrication, the proof of concept of the bus was finished, and it was at that point that I think we realized we were onto something, that we had something special. And at that point, the next step was to invest in acoustical treatments and address the room.
So at that point, you call it version 1.0. Is it still 1.0 or is it evolved?
It's, I guess technically it would be 2.0 now, maybe 2.1.
When did it change to 2.0?
I'll explain that later in the, generally it was a change of loudspeaker drivers and the room acoustics, to answer your question briefly.
Okay.
Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, the bus was the, to my knowledge, the first mobile audio system to exhibit at a high-end home audio show. I shared the exhibit with Matt Hall, I believe, who was also there, another distinguished mobile audio competitor and builder. Lifeline Batteries became a sponsor. Another great moment with the bus, Victor Wooten and Dave Weckl after a Chick Corea concert. And I went up with Brian from, what's his name? I'm sorry, I'm drawing. Brian Kyle, yes, we went up, thank you. Yeah, and we shared a special day there, and so that's also very, very important and memorable to me. And then we have another audio mentor of mine who's in the audience, and I appreciate your
Who
attendance.
took too much space, it looks like.
Not enough space in my estimation, thank you. Sound like none other, music from the inside, the goal of those with ears and hearts that care for what is left on earth as truth and beauty. Jim Murad. Wow, that really touched my heart and meant a lot.
Well, your voice touches our hearts when we climb in and listen. It's counterintuitive. It shouldn't be happening, but there.
Thank you. And then, 5 days later, Robert Harley, I invite him on really a whim to come to CES and see the bus. I never thought he would. What a gentleman. What a just an incredible gesture of faith. And he admitted he wasn't expecting much, but when he heard it, he was quite impressed and autographed it. And then later did something else, which I'll share with you. Then it started a series of mobile audio articles about how the bus was built. The title of the article was "The Car Audio System Nobody Would Build." And that was given to me by Chris Yada of Alpine, who started was instrumental in the demo vehicle program for Alpine. Again, Mark's Barbecue, another exhibit there. Some more articles, part 2, part 3, more about how the bus was fabricated. Here's an interesting story. Alpine's 30th anniversary. So they invited me up, which was an incredible honor. And I show up in this white, nondescript bus, and the young ladies at the booth, the reception booth, I drove up in the van and they said, "The deliveries are in the back." The event organizer comes running over. "Hey, John, how are you doing?" And they're like, "You know this clown?" And they said, "Well, where are we putting him?" And they said, "Exhibit space A." And they said, "A? A?" And I said, "A? Where's A?"
Canada.
That was A.
Right there, front of the building.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. Okay, so the day after that, well, not the day, 2 days after that event, I was done with version 1 and embarked upon version 2. Version 2 focused on the acoustical treatments, the interior of the van. You'll see back here, I hacked together one of the headliners, and that's in a partial stage of fabrication. And I waited until the last minute to take the bus apart, mainly because I didn't want to lose the music. And I also knew it would be a long journey before it would play music again. And you'll actually see how long later in the presentation. So remember that, late summer of 2008 was when the bus was disabled, taken apart, stripped again, and version 2 had begun. September, another article. The 5th article is particularly interesting. It was about material science. Since I'm a polymer scientist and mechanical engineer, and I believe that loudspeaker design and audio system implementation is facilitated by wise use and proper use of materials, I wrote an expose on the common materials used in fabrication: MDF, Baltic birch, aluminum and steel, fiberglass, woven roving, and chopped mat, and published all the materials properties, and even did a deflection analysis of enclosures, and compared the stiffness properties of the various materials to 3/4 inch MDF as a basis or a reference. So if you trusted 3/4 inch MDF as sufficiently thick for a loudspeaker enclosure, which I do not, you could use, I calculated what the equivalent thickness of various materials would be. And the surprise from that was that many of the mobile audio fabricators use fiberglass. They think it's 1/8 inch thick, put it on the ground, stand on it. Wow, look how strong this is. Well, they missed the boat. It's plenty strong. It's not stiff enough to avoid
Conduction.
yes, and resonances in and of itself are born from the enclosure, adversely affecting the cumulative spectral decay. So, propagating these deflection calculations through, I found out that if you use chopped matte fiberglass, your enclosure would need to be 15 millimeters thick. And nobody makes fiberglass that thick except the Magic Bus. All the fiberglass is, if it's woven roving, it can be 11 millimeters thick. So all of the enclosures in the bus, which are fiberglass, are greater than 11 millimeters thick to be at least as stiff as 3/4 inch MDF. And the pods on the dash are actually much thicker than that in many places. They actually weigh 24 pounds, the bare enclosure for each of the mini monitors on the dash.
Hey,
So-
John,
Yes?
didn't you also shape your stuff so it would give it more stiffness as opposed
Yeah.
to being flat panels?
Yeah, everything is all convex curvature, compound curvature, yeah, and that helps a lot too in terms of deflection.
So how thick MDF do you use, 2 inch or 1.5 inch? What's your preference on the baffles?
Oh, my preference for thickness is as thick as you can get, sort of the too much Magic Bus philosophy.
So what are you using on the bus?
I used 1 inch MDF for the front baffle plate on the monitors, and then backed that up with another 1/4 inch thick fiberglass layer behind that.
Oh,
And then on front of that, I used 1/4 inch thick steel with a 3/16 inch thick EAR damping constrained layer material. So there's a sandwich to damp resonances, and
That's very dead. You can knock on it.
try to be. The bus began to become quite popular and pick up other sponsors, and one in particular was Directed Electronics, and I used the Clifford Matrix Responder alarm system, and they chose to use it in a national campaign, saying that the premise was Jon Whitledge chose the Clifford alarm to protect his $500,000 van from theft, and they used that in a national advertising campaign. So I was very honored that they were willing to do that. Dynaudio officially became a sponsor in 2009. I've been purchasing and using Dynaudio drivers for a decade and a half, believed in them. Unbelievable reliability. The Dynaudio drivers are now, the door drivers are now 7, maybe 8 years old. They sound better than the day I bought them. And the quality is just exceptional. The sound, the mechanical quality is exceptional. The sound quality is wonderful. And just believe in the product immensely.
John, are all the Dynaudio speakers that you use, are they the same efficiency, or are they varied?
They vary all over the place depending on their design goals. Like the MW190s that I was using on the sub were higher efficiency, bigger box design, a little bit lower excursion.
Mhm.
And now the Isotar 1200s that I'm using are more of a smaller box design, higher excursion, better power handling and things. Thanks to Jim Murad, I learned about Mundell Lowe. And in 2009, I acquired his autograph at his home. I think he was about 90 when he signed
He was
it.
87 there, he's 92 now.
Oh, he's 87?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's just a kid there, right?
Yeah.
He recorded with Charlie Parker in the 40s, Billie Holiday. He's played literally with everybody, Frank Sinatra, you name it. And he's recorded with them. He was head of the NBC radio orchestra all through the 50s. We've heard him in movies for 45 years. You just didn't know, but that guitar was Mundell Lowe.
That was amazing. And, I was talking with him about, I was trying to establish some credibility because he didn't know me very at all. And I said, hey, look, the subwoofer has Dave Weckle's autograph on it. And he said, Dave, he was in my high school band. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Just get the autograph and go home.
That's right.
I have nothing here.
Did you play any of his recordings in your bus?
I have not, actually. I'd like to obtained some of them, yeah.
Would have been nice to play it for him.
I plan to do that in the near future. I hope
We've
to.
recently done an album that if you see you can do that.
Yeah, I'd like to
Yeah.
actually meet with Mundell again and play some of his recordings and maybe get some video testimonial and pay tribute to his wonderful body of work.
Well, Gal could, because he's getting up there.
Well,
He's liable to outlive all of us in this room.
he'll likely outlive me, that's for sure. Here's another great moment. Michael Oletta took this picture, Jean-Luc Ponty at Anthology.
Yeah.
And of course you can tell I was pretty excited. John Jorgensen. We went to the old Dizzy's. He came down out to Dizzy's and he was like, I'm hungry. And of course I'm always hungry. He said, do you know a good place to go eat? So we had dinner, Janet and I, with John Jorgensen and his band. And then we saw him perform, and now every time he comes to Southern California, we try to get together, hang out a little bit, autograph the bus, and great. I just adore John Jorgensen. I mean, he's just amazing. I just saw Tegan Taylor, who's a young artist in San Diego, and I think it's her dad, Tim Taylor, who saw John Jorgensen's autograph on the bus, and he was like, he's a fabulous guitarist, and he was like, whoa, John Jorgensen, you know. So these experiences are just wonderful as I move forward. Christian McBride was with Jeffrey Keyser at Tango Del Rey one night, so we hung out. And I asked him to make the autograph, I'm a huge fan, so I asked him to make the autograph really large, and he did it he said, you know, that autograph comes back from my delinquent teenage days when I did graffiti. And so that was fun. Okay. Joshua Bell. So I went to Disney Concert Hall, saw Joshua Bell, came home, told my wife, hey, I just saw Joshua Bell. She goes, I would get sick, I would miss work, I would do anything to see Joshua Bell. Anything at all. Note to self, earn brownie points, right? It's the key to a good marriage. So, and you all know how special Janet is, and I try to, I mean, she suffers through my audio passion and supports me like nobody else. So, found out he was coming to San Diego in a surprise appearance, Copley Hall, called him up on a whim, said, you probably don't have any tickets, it's probably sold out. They said, we do have tickets. Oh yeah, what ones? Front row center. I'm like, I can't afford that. I go, how much are they? $50.
Oh.
Sold. So I surprised Janet, took her there. We were literally this far from Joshua Bell. I think his sweat was flying on us actually. And
This was
it was
in Boston. Where was Copley?
Oh, in San Diego.
In San Diego.
He was playing a 1713 Strad, and I like to study violins. I'm friends with the Violin Makers
You're a
Association.
musician yourself?
No, I'm unfortunately no.
You know the story about Josh in the subway to New York?
Yes,
Yeah, that's a hell of a story.
isn't that a great story?
Yeah, it is.
That YouTube video was
Amazing, yeah.
yeah. Benny Golson, thanks to Jim Murad again. He was at Anthology, and I met him after the show, and he said, I saw you in the front row. He goes, you were really digging it. He goes, I knew I must have been doing something right. And so that was fun. And he wrote, I don't believe this. So we were together. Here's another great story about the bus. This just relating to people and being places. We went to a Brazilian party, and there we were celebrating the birthday of this lady who was turning 71. And I didn't know who she was, so we struck up a conversation. And she said, oh, I play Eleanor Rigby at the Beatles Love Show. Really? Wow. Come out to my van. She didn't even know about my van. What's your favorite song? While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I play it for her. Her 71st birthday, she autographs the subwoofer, and we go our separate ways. One time we were in Vegas, and hey, we're in Vegas, and I gave her a call. I'll get you tickets. So she comped us, and then after the show, took me backstage. I met all of the cast members, and she got the playbill signed for me, and she's just amazing.
Is she a singer? Or
Mostly
sort of
actor. Yeah, mostly actor.
Actor.
Yeah, actress, I mean. Yeah. Hubert Laws, that anthology, that was amazing. That same night, Sammy Nestica was in the audience, and also acquired Sammy Nestica's autograph. Here's another milestone. The bus, the interior, I was sort of at a proof of concept stage with the interior of the bus, and the audio treatments were fabricated but rough, not finished, supposedly tuned, but I needed to validate the tuning to make sure that I had accomplished the goal that I had set out to accomplish. So Brule & Care loaned me their new 2270 handheld sound meter, which is about $10,000, and it measures reverberation time. And so I characterized the interior of the bus. Funny story, I needed to generate an impulse response inside the bus and then measure the decay. So I quickly thought about, shooting a pistol, but I couldn't really deal with the holes in the roof. So I got balloons. So I went to the Hallmark store the first time, and I bought all these balloons. What are you going to do with them? Oh, I'm going to go pop them. So she thought I was certifiably crazy. I bought them pre-inflated, drove them home, half of them popped on the way home. Then I learned that the noise floor at my home was the ambient noise floor was about 30 dB, which is pretty loud, especially when you're trying to get good reverberation decay spectra. So I went back to the Hallmark store and I bought 50 more balloons. She said, "What are you going to do with these?" I go, "I'm going to pop them. I'm going to pop them all." Now she knew I was certifiably crazy.
You mean the subs blew up the balloons?
No, I was blowing up the balloons to pop them to generate an impulse signal.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And then I was using the data acquisitions. It would acquire 800 data points over 4 seconds. And then I would acquire all that data, average it, analyze it in Excel, and then build an acoustical treatment or a series of them to accomplish. So I did the van empty. So I went out to the desert, to a dry lake bed. The background noise level was 17 dB in this dry lake bed. It was quiet, and it was also hot. And when the bead of sweat would fall off my forehead and hit the floor, it would go tink.
Yep.
And you could see it on the meter. It was that sensitive.
Wow.
So I was super silent. I had to wear cotton clothes, so just the ruffling of my jacket would affect and I took a long spear from the back seat, and I would pop the balloon, measure the decay, and I just did that on the empty van. And then I came back and I made the treatments. So let's talk about the treatments. Carl Carpenter here in the front row did all of the CNC work for the acoustical treatments in the bus, and it was an incredible amount of work. The CAD drawings were intricate because I used the RPG patent for the abfuser panel, which combines selective absorption and reflection to make the hole pattern. And then Carl Carpenter CNC'd out, it must have been 15, by the time you were done with this project, it was probably 15 sheets of plywood or something.
It was a bunch.
It was a lot of plywood. And it was all marine grade plywood, Gilbert from France. And then later there was, Carl turned me on to apple ply, which is also void-free, high-quality plywood. So Carl was an incredible part of the bus in the fabrication of the acoustical treatments, and he's an avid audiophile. Honored he's here, maker of loudspeakers and all sorts of audio equipment, and so it's great to have you here. And
Just having fun.
Thanks for the contribution to the bus.
Of course, Carl can borrow the bus anytime he wants, right?
No.
Nice try, thank you.
Do you ever take the bus out for a beer and pizza run?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my only car
You drive it around town.
and my daily driver.
Are you allowed to
Wow.
crank it up when you're on the road?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Actually, it's so well insulated that there's not much sound that actually escapes the bus.
Oh,
That's an understatement.
yeah.
I had the booth right outside your bus, that Del Radio.
Oh, yeah.
And before I got in the bus, I didn't know you were playing music.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's how quiet
Wow.
it is outside.
There's an extraordinary, one listener described, he would hear the ambient noise outside, then we'd get in the bus, close the doors, and he would say, it's like listening to a stereo in a vault. And so that sort of summarizes what the degree, and I was going after that degree of isolation. The graph sort of tells it all. This is the reverberation spectra, 10 hertz to 10,000 hertz. The gray lines are the ITU specification for studios. The blue, no, let's start with the cars. The green, yellow, and red are typical cars. And these are vastly different kinds of cars. There's a Jaguar, a Beetle, and a X5 BMW. So this is a typical car. And look how short the reverberation time is in the treble, and then all of a sudden it spikes up in the bass. And this is what gives the imbalance of reverberation times is what gives typical cars that boomy sound and that dry sound. Two of the worst combinations you could ask for in a car. So the goal of the bus was, or choosing the bus, was to choose, if you look at reverberation, the Sabine equation, the goal was to maximize the internal volume of the bus, and also choose a car that had internal dimensions that distribute the resonance modes to start with the best possible room that I could. So, being that it's a car, it's a bad room, but I chose the best bad room available. And, but cars are terrible in terms of reverberation. The blue dots are Robert Harley's listening room in New Mexico. Norm Varney did an article about it. They estimated the cost of the treatments to be about $33,000, and was a sensational room. I'm told, I never heard it, but I don't doubt that it was fabulous. And it of course, essentially complies with the ITU studio standard defined by the gray lines. The black is the magic bus. And look at the extraordinary control in the treble. It's within the specification for studios. And look at the bass. The bass is well controlled and well within the standards defined by the ITU. So I was very, very happy with that result. And I think it translates into the listening. Anthony Gramani, a famous acoustician, listened to it and complimented the bus and said, it is apparently the bass is unencumbered by the room. And that, to me, was a tremendous compliment.
It's almost impossible, actually.
34 Helmholtz absorbers in total, 20 binary amplitude diffusers, draperies selected for trapping quarter wavelengths. Much of what I put into the bus came from the Master Handbook of Acoustics. It's about a 750-page book that really is the Bible for acoustics. I read it several times to make sure I was doing it right. And many of the equations for the Helmholtz absorbers were taken from that. So Custom Autobody did a lot of my paint. They do specialize in restorations in San Diego. Hiroshima, always been a big fan of Hiroshima, especially Jun Kuramoto on the koto. Then Russell Moore, male bluegrass vocalist of the year. Charles McPherson, art treasure in San Diego, saxophonist. Another article in Car Audio and Electronics magazine about how the doors were made. Then, best of all, I was preparing for a completion party. I just had this idea that I would have a party. And Jim Murad graciously orchestrated the attendance and the performance of Nat Adderley Jr. at my upcoming Magic Bus home audio and car audio exposition. Shortly thereafter, I hooked up with Joey DiFrancesco. He came down on a whim from LA to play in San Diego, and played with Gilbert Castellanos and the gang. And
What's his instrument?
mhm.
What does he play?
Organ.
Yeah,
Organ.
B3.
He played with Miles when he was 17 years old at Olario's.
Wow.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He weighed about half of what he weighs now.
Yeah.
Gary Burton. I went to see Chick Corea. That was right after my birthday, so that was a nice birthday present to have Gary Burton do the bus. Another article in the San Diego Reader. Here's another milestone. Magic Bus version 2, which we've been talking about, took 6 1/3 years, 76 months, 14,760 hours of fabrication. The bus had 70,000 miles on it when it was finally done. So it was done, April 18th, 2011. Now, how did I know it was done? I've been tuning it for 6 months, running thousands of sign sweeps through. That's why that silly laptop has a terabyte hard drive, because of all the sign sweeps that I ran through at 9624, tuning the bus. I had 4 failed attempts at getting it right. So how did I know it was right? I'd tune it to a certain philosophy, then I'd take it to Steve McCormack and have him listen to it. In 30 seconds, he'd tell me something is wrong, and that would eradicate about 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of tuning. And I'd go back to the drawing board and try again. And I kept incrementally getting better and better. Jim listened to some of the iterations as it was progressing, some of the bad iterations actually. But finally, on the 5th try, Steve said, "This is it, this works." And he had a few things that he thought I could improve, but overall he thought that it was about as good as I was going to get it. And
It's actually more interesting when it's screwed up than when it's accurate. Because when it's accurate, there's nothing to say or do except just listen.
And that's what I've done. I haven't hooked up the computer or tuned or done anything to it since April 18th of 2011. So the mobile audio guys have a tendency to change equipment and tune frequently. And
Is it voiced in the digital domain?
it is.
And
Yeah.
how long did it take you to do the voicing?
6 months. So I would adopt a theory. I tried most of the crossover theories that make sense for the car. Most of them didn't work. I finally arrived on the, I'm a big fan of Vandersteen loudspeakers.
Yeah.
So I tried to get the right triangle, but approach to the impulse, but it just wouldn't work in the car. And so I adopted the next best approach, I thought, which was an approach used, by Vivid and Revell and a whole bunch of other very high-end loudspeakers who have incredible acclaim, which is the what I like to call is just lining up the squiggles of the impulses. The tweeter fires, it overshoots right at that moment. The mid-range fires, it overshoots. Then the woofer fires, and so you have these series of contiguous or continuous squiggles, and it works, wonderfully.
Without using a lot of fancy crossover curves.
I used every digital trick
So you
at my
tested
disposal.
everything and
Yeah.
ended
There's,
up with what you have now.
yeah,
After 6 months.
yeah.
Wow.
Then finally, the Magic Bus Car and Home Audio Expo, there's Joe Kabbalah, who was later joined by Jim Murad, setting up on the Saturday before the concert. There's a picture of Tango del Rey in San Diego, California. It's by the Pacific Beach area. The bus was out front. Here's a picture of the interior of Tango del Rey. It has wonderful acoustics.
Oh boy, it's one of the best places in the world.
It's one of the best, like non-specific.
They don't even know why, and they
Yeah.
just inherited it. Yeah.
And I loved the space, and it was so wonderful to have the concert there and to generate such well, we'll discuss the recording in a moment, but Jim, why don't you talk about the recording? It was a T.E.C. double speed DSD?
Well, we had some new Tascam gear.
Or Tascam,
192,
sorry.
yeah. But we were using a Jacqueline disc phase array recording, which maximized our ability to capture the internal ambience of that amazing room that has all those stained glass windows on either side. You wouldn't think it would be good with that, but it was. Kind of the magical thing, John, about that weekend that you had going was you had the great Roy McCurdy on drums, and he was 17 years with Cannonball Adderley and 31 years with Nancy Wilson, and just one of the handful of greatest drummers. And it was just a joyous weekend.
It was amazing, and I've since seen Roy McCurdy on numerous occasions, especially for Daniel Jackson, tributes and benefit concerts, and it's always.
So where in San Diego is this club?
This is near the I-5. It's on
It's
Balboa Avenue.
it's the entrance to Pacific Beach.
Yeah,
Oh, PD, okay.
essentially
Yeah.
Pacific, yeah. And it's a great venue with amazing acoustics, and it was a natural choice. Plus, the bus could be out front, and there was plenty of ancillary parking. There was also an expo around here, and one of the things that I wanted to do, well, when Carl was exhibiting, Carl Carpenter with his fine woodworking, there was also something very interesting. Most of us guys, we love audio. We drag our wives or girlfriends along, and they're reasonably interested and supportive in audio, but I wanted to give them something special too. So I had Shampoo 2, a local salon, doing hairstyling for the ladies and nails and manicures, so that the ladies had something to do while us guys were geeking out.
More
over
brownie
the-
points, I like that.
Yeah, again, the brownie point thing, And so then Rocky Frost from Custom Auto Body was also exhibiting some of his fine paint and body examples.
Ultra fine.
Dine Audio was there. Trying to think of some of the other examples.
Tascam was there, Neil Faison came down.
Yeah,
from
Neil
Tascam.
Faison. That was amazing, and I see him frequently at the shows, and always thank him for. Oh, let's talk about Gilbert Castellanos. Gilbert Castellanos, if you're not familiar with Gilbert, he is essentially the focal point of jazz in San Diego, I would say. He's one of the most important and prolific jazz artists in San Diego. And his quintet, Michael Geen on the drums, just sensational. Charlie Chavez on the congas, Rob Thorson on the bass, and Irving Flores on the piano. Just a sensational, blow you away sort of experience that night. They played one of my favorite songs, which is Guadalajara in 1972, and we actually have that recording that we can play out in the bus, and it's phenomenal. Joe did that night.
Joe did.
And he mixed and mastered it.
Yeah, I was doing recording somewhere else that night.
Yeah.
Gilbert travels the world with the Hamilton Clayton Big Band.
Yeah.
So I'll run into him in Washington, D.C., or New York, or Boston, or London. He's quite a guy.
I love Gilbert. Yeah. And all the musicians for that matter. I just think they're so important in San Diego. And then here is thanks to Jim Murad. I mean, Sunday night, the last night of the show, the exposition, amazing, just jaw-dropping. It was so incredible. Longino Parsons, Trevor Ware was on the bass. And
Yeah, I'm drawing it.
I'm drawing a blank.
This guy's amazing because he has the Cannonball Adderley part. He's got a B Cannonball. Shit, like but he comes close,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
That was amazing, and to see, I'll never forget that.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, and Longino, by the way, right there is playing Nat Adderley Sr.'s cornet
That's right.
from the great Cannonball Adderley sextet days.
So Nat is Cannonball's son?
Yes. No. Yes. No. Nat is Cannonball's nephew. That's what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. That was amazing. So-
And Nat, by the way, spent 35 years as Luther Vandross's musical director.
Wow.
He made a lot of money.
And this was Easter Sunday.
Mhm.
which made it even more remarkable.
And is that his instrument, the horn?
That's Nat's horn.
Yeah.
Nat's senior's horn.
Yeah.
Longino is finishing a Ph.D. at the University of Florida in musicology.
Wow. I'd like to see them someday again, really.
But they're coming back.
Are they?
Yeah.
Wow. Robert, I exhibited at this show back in 2011, and Robert Harley was kind enough to come and see the bus, the version 2. He had reviewed the version 1. He was very interested in version 2, and one of the ways that I generated interest was I sent him the reverberation graph of his room overlaid with the bus's room, and I think that was the hook. So that was kind of funny. City Beat, another article. Del Mar Times. Here's another special event. Jim Murad's Blueport Jazz Festival, the first inaugural, or the inaugural event celebrating the completion of the Performing Arts Center. I love this picture, isn't that great?
Dear to my heart, but that's pure narcissism.
The Performing Arts Center is just absolutely amazing. If you haven't been to Soka University, you should check that out. And it's a gem.
It's 15 minutes from here.
You have anything else to?
Well, Yo-Yo Ma says about our hall, which kind of blows me away, that it's the best acoustic hall in the United States. And when I pushed him a bit, because he's traveled the world, he says he thinks there's only one other hall in the world as good, and that's in Osaka, Japan.
Wow.
For Yo-Yo to say that, I mean, he would. He's not going to bullshit us. I mean, he's not getting paid for that. That's amazing, really.
Yeah. So that was very special to be a part of that. Here's another special thing. Larry Mitchell, Grammy Award winning guitarist, virtuoso, really. Friends with all the greats, Steve Vai, Satriani. You just name the guitarist, he knows them. And I've been watching him since the mid-90s, and he saw the project and heard the project as it evolved over the years, and said, when it's done, I want to play through it. And that was it. So in January at CES, Larry Mitchell became the first musician in the history of audio to play through a mobile audio system.
Did you guys record that?
We did not.
Oh.
And Dun Audio graciously provided a pair of these special 25s to render his guitar outside the van. So basically you would come up to the van, you would see Larry playing outside. You would hear him playing his guitar through special 25s with a T+A amplifier. So this is about as good live guitar you're going to hear. Then you could go in the driver's seat of the bus and hear how the bus renders the audio system, because the signal was being simultaneously fed into the bus. So that was the first time that had ever been done. And it was amazing. It was so exciting. And
what is the RT decay time in the bus?
that was back on that graph. It's about, let's go back. The T.20 is about 0.25 seconds across, the average here.
Yeah.
At the same show, Earl Zausmer, he's not a household name, but he's very important to the mobile audio industry. Back in the 90s, he built a 540 BMW. He took Bowers and Wilkins loudspeakers from their Statement product and installed it in a car. And he won numerous IASCA championships, essentially all of the competitions he entered. He was an icon and a pioneer and a visionary sort of fellow in the 12-volt industry. And if anybody would know what a good car would sound like, it would certainly be him. And he comes to these shows, usually CES, big headphone advocate. He also participated in a sound quality roundtable discussion that I conducted in Arizona. He lives in Phoenix. And he came to CES, and he listened to the bus, and he said, unequivocally, the best sounding vehicle today anywhere. And then he autographed it, Perfection on Wheels. So there it is, a mogul, a legend in the 12-volt industry, validating my work for the 12-volt people. Larry and I got a chance to meet Wilfried from Dyn Audio and his assistant Claudia. They listened to the bus and autographed it. Dealerscope did another article. Then in the spring I met Goodwin at Anthology, and that was quite an honor, you know, to have Eric Marienthal and Gordon Goodwin autograph the bus. Then in June again at this show in 2012, I invited Alan Phillips, who is just a pianist, virtuoso, drums virtuoso. He's just this amazing musician.
Composer, arranger.
Yeah.
He writes for Hollywood movies.
Emmy Award winning. Invited him to play keys into the bus. So he became the second musician ever to play into a mobile audio system. Then Russell Blake, bassist, became the third musician to ever play into a mobile audio system. Great weekend. And then Dean Peer couldn't resist the fun, so he joined in with his drummer, Brett Mann. So we have Dean Peer, Alan Phillips, Brett Mann, and Russell Blake.
Oh, I heard that.
That was amazing.
Jesus.
He played for me on Sunday morning, Russell Blake did. Amazing Grace, through the bus, solo, and two.
You have to hear Russell to believe him. I mean, he has to sound like nothing else.
Then I had the great fortune after that meeting Albert Lee. So Albert Lee listened to the bus and autographed it. So that was a big thrill.
He's a guitarist.
Yeah. And you know, it's a funny aside. Neither of them would have done it had I not struck up a conversation with their wives. So once I got their wives interested in the bus, they just suggested to, honey, maybe you should go do this. And yes, dear.
What is the
I'll do
band
it."
he used to be with back in the 60s?
I'm sorry?
He was with a band. I watched Woodstock yesterday, and he was in that.
I don't know. He's principally with, what, Emmylou Harris, right?
Emmylou Harris.
Yeah.
Wasn't he 10 years after?
10 years
No,
out.
that was Alvin Lee.
That was
Oh, that was Al.
Alvin Lee.
Alvin.
Oh.
No, this was Alvin.
Are we gonna see Roger Daltrey anywhere?
No, unfortunately, yeah.
That would validate your bus completely.
Yeah, you know the logo that I use, the Magic Bus logo, the insignia. I showed the Who logo, you know, to my wife, and then I showed her my logo, and she said, "You're going to get in trouble for that." And I said, "I hope so." I'd love to, you know, tick off Pete Townsend and have a problem with that, and maybe, you know, I'd make the logo go away if he'd autograph it. It's very simple. Nathan East from Foreplay, again at Anthology. Story behind it. Friends with his brother James, who played with Larry Mitchell for a decade and a half. Met James's sons Trevor and Miles and his brother Marcel, and then I met James's sister Cecilia. So I had all of the East family. I think I have all the East family on there. I might be missing one. So I contacted Nathan and I said, "I've got everybody but you." You know, so he couldn't resist. He had to come out and see the band. We were out at Anthology till 1:30 in the morning, listening with Nathan East. He couldn't get out of it. And then he got his recording engineer, Ken Freeman, to come out and listen to it. And that was a very special moment. I was traveling on business in DC, and like I so typically do, if I have time to kill, I want to see what sort of live music is going on. So I found the Imani Winds were playing. So I watched them in Maryland, took a taxi cab, and I rode home with Miriam and told her about the bus, and my friendship with Larry Mitchell, and she said, yeah, I've heard of Larry Mitchell, and she said, I asked her if she would autograph the bus someday. They played at the Beckman Auditorium at Caltech, I think, and we met, and I got all of the Imani Winds to autograph the bus as well. Then Larry Mitchell's back at CES. It's a regular thing for him. He likes to go to Vegas because then NAMM is right after that, so he gets 2 good shows in the beginning of the year when he's not touring. So it's always a pleasure to have. And Larry is like a magnet for other talented musicians. You'll see why a little bit later. So Larry first met Ann Bisson was at CES and at the show, and Larry and Ann just hit it off right away, and they did. I think you guys did a video. Somebody did. Maybe it was Peter Bruninger that did the video. Larry and Ann improvising together, and that's, I think, featured on my website somewhere. She's amazing. I just bought her new album, Blue Mine, and now she has another one, Tales from the Treetops, right? Tales from the Treetops, and sounds great in the bus. Blue Mine. Muriel Anderson, another fabulous performance in San Diego, and she graciously autographed the bus afterwards. Utanto is one of my biggest fans. He's from Jakarta, Indonesia, and he traveled halfway around the world to see the bus. His only purpose was to see the bus. He'd read all my articles, he'd seen some of my, online escapades, and wanted to see the bus and hear it. He's a big fan of the Yellow Jackets, so when I showed him Russell Ferrante's autograph on the Helmholtz absorber in the back, he was thrilled. And what's the album, Mint Jam? Yeah, we played that, and he was just blown away. And he's been a big fan, so he wrote an article about the bus. So I have a following in Indonesia about the bus. That was fun. Then Jim Murad was with us that night. Patricia Barber. Never thought I could meet Patricia Barber.
She's terrific.
Love.
She's a sweet person.
Yeah.
Too.
Sweet, just the best. And I wrote her this, I don't even know how I think I wrote to the general email, the one that says contact us, which really means don't contact us. So I wrote something like, it's my 51st birthday, and I've been a big fan, and I've got something very special that I'd be honored if you'd autograph it. I'll be darned if she didn't write back within like a few hours and said, I'd love to, bring it on up and get me after the concert. And we did. And so that was great. Another Newport show again. So it's Mike from Dine Audio and Nathan Vanderstoot from NBS and Chris Conacher from the Computer Audiophile. Then Brian Lynch, I got a chance to meet Brian Lynch when he was in town, and fantastic, autographed the bus. Andrew Jones honored the bus with his autograph. I'm a big fan of his loudspeaker designs. And are you folks familiar with Luis Miguel, the Latin superstar? He did a tour, grossed something like $950 million. He's one of the top all-time grossing musicians in existence. Just an amazing superstar. Tommy Eros is a friend of mine. He's the percussionist for Luis Miguel. And his band members came to 98 Bottles and performed one night. And I got to meet Lalo Carrillo and Francisco Royo. And just, wow, you talk about musicianship. Just amazing. So we're coming back to sponsorship again. Directly Electronics, the Viper brand now has Smart Start, so you can monitor your car alarm with your smartphone. So I'm going to install that right after this show for a nice summertime project. Tim Flannery, I met him at a Christmas concert. He autographed the bus and asked me to play Hillbilly Rain off of his new album at Maximum Volume. So that was fun. Another CES, another V show with Larry Mitchell. This time Dean Peer joined in the fun, and then Larry's friends from the Rock of Ages, Dan and Chris, joined in. And last year, or the year prior, Alan Childs, who performs with these gentlemen, also came over to the bus. So Friday, we had a jam session featuring Dean Peer, the folks from the Rock of Ages, and Larry Mitchell at the bus. So this is the spontaneity and the magic and the magnetism that Larry Mitchell has, which is such an amazing artist. George Bohannon came through town recently, another Dealer Scope magazine. Bill Stein became a sponsor. It took a little work. They said, what do shock absorbers have to do with audio? And I said, absolutely nothing, and everything. The bus is about, it's attractive to automotive enthusiasts. It's also, automobiles are obviously an attractive part of the audio. I mean, audiophiles are also automotive enthusiasts, also probably photography enthusiasts, and I said I think it's a perfect fit. Plus, I've used Bill Stein products all my life, so they agreed to become a sponsor, and I'm very appreciative that they did. MyOatmeal.com. I strongly endorse an oatmeal company. Makes fabulous oatmeal, 22 billion combinations. Anthony Kolova is the owner of this fine company. Make any kind of oatmeal you want, and you order it online, ship it to your house, name your combination, so it's individual oatmeal tailored for you. And finally, we're here at the show, and the journey continues, and I hope that the bus and the presentation conveys the passion and the love for audio. I want to hopefully send the message that audio is one of the most beautiful and purest things that we can do. I want to help grow the industry. It's the entire audio industry, not just home, but car too. And I want to combine the two industries. The bus has turned out to be the first and only car that has bridged the chasm between home audio and car audio, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to do that. Thanks to my sponsors who have believed in this project. Dyn Audio, especially Kimber Cable. I'd like to thank Ray Kimber for allowing me to use the room. To give the presentation, I'd like to thank Ray Kimber for his enthusiastic support, his wonderful wires, and everything that Ray's, his IsoMic recordings are fabulous. I'd like to thank all the other sponsors that were mentioned previously, and I would like to encourage folks who hear the bus and listen to my message to do two things. Don't watch TV one night. Go out and listen to live music.
Good for you.
The second thing is, if you love audio, like I know you do, get a friend to love audio, and that will cause exponential growth. So the musicians need your love, the audiophile industry needs your love and support, and these are two ways that I know that we can make a difference and we can make it happen. So thank you for your attendance and your wonderful questions, and we'll go out and listen to the bus.
I have a question for
Oh
you.
yeah, because question.
In all these years, I've never thought to ask this. What was the seed that germinated this? You were like sitting down with a bottle of whiskey and smoking a doobie and just had some crazy idea, or something had to generate this?
You didn't tell him your last name, did you? It's not Whitledge, it's Johnny Appleseed. He's right. The seed of this is the seed you planted just a moment ago about getting people to listen to music. That's a great question.
It is, yeah. I have to thank Chuck Perrin from Disney's, because he was one of the first. I was out at Episodes in Del Mar, and he was playing at Episodes, and I was captivated by Chuck, something special that he had. that I just loved. And I thought, you know, this got me into listening to live music, which got me into building the first Volkswagen van, which I put a car stereo in. I never read a rule book about how to compete in car stereo competitions. I just I put Macintosh and Dyne Audio in the first van, and basically to celebrate what these musicians do. So I would listen to Chuck's album Beatitude and some of Larry Mitchell's. That Beatitude album is amazing. And
It's a bad pun, though.
yeah, yeah. But that's Chuck Berry.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
he's so clever and original, and I love what he does with Dizzy's. I love what he stands for, and I love the message. Dizzy's is this great place that proliferates what we love, and I celebrate Chuck Berry for that. But so that was part of it. Love for seeing live music, and
I can see that to your living room, but to the car, I mean, that's
Then the
something to
love-
generate that.
Well, I would go to the desert and in the bus, and I would miss having good music with me. So if you're out in the desert and you want music, play it in the bus. And there's nothing like being around in the middle of the desert, being around a campfire, listening to music. So that sort of spawned the interest in mobile audio. And then on a whim, I entered a competition. I never read a rule book. I just showed up with Janet, and we went to a IASCA competition. I entered the entry-level class, the rookie class. Much to my surprise, I won first place. And I thought, well, this is good. I think I'll do this again.
They created a monster.
Yeah, they created a monster
On the
because
bus or on the van?
on the Volkswagen Eurovan.
On the Euro.
And so
Do you still have that?
I don't. I sold it to build this bus. So I competed a total of 10 times and won 10 first place trophies and never got a second place trophy. I won Rookie of the Year in mobile audio competitions. And then I had Steve McCormack listen to that system because I thought it was pretty good, and it wasn't. It was pretty good, but not good enough to meet Steve McCormack's standards. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to start over. I'm just going to have to get rid of this van and get serious. And that's what led to the second bus.
Have you ever shown at the LA Auto Show?
I never had.
Are you planning on doing that sometime in the future?
Not presently. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
You know, there's an outcropping of what you've just done with us for us today. We have Clint Burkett in the room, who is just an amazing documentarian, and he's especially great with music. We have to find a way to get Clint to make a documentary of your experience with the bus, so you would tell this in a permanent 80 or 90-minute documentary, and this is the guy to do it. We have to find a way to do that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'd be honored.
And put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You put a lot of your money into the bus.
Yeah.
Did you get help from others along the way, or later in the process, or?
The sponsorship principally embodied free product, and then there was about $300K of my personal money. 65 of it was actually materials that went into the audio portion of it that made the music, and then the rest of it went into the ancillary tools, shop supplies, fabrication expenses, and so forth. So there was a substantial investment.
Well, it was Dyne and Ray Kember, and what's the third?
Radix Wire and
Oh, okay.
Cascade Audio. I mean, just the Kimber. I mean, the bus has. So I'm told, or we believe, without actually, the bus may have more WBT product in it than any other audio system in the world because of all the connections. Because there's 9 loudspeakers, and every loudspeaker in the bus has a Kimber cable wire running to it, as well as a multitude of WBT connections. And the WBT product, it's like audio jewelry. It's irresistible. And Steve McCormack uses it in his products, as do many other great manufacturers. because they know that it renders the best sound and the best quality in those.
Have you ever taken the bus back to the East Coast?
No, farthest east I've gotten is Denver.
Then,
Yeah,
put it in Rocky Mountain.
yeah, for Rocky Mountain.
I see a tour around the whole United States coming up real soon.
That would be great. I'd love to do that.
Maybe that would be the documentary.
That would
There
be
you go.
amazing. It would be great to visit home audio stores, retailers,
just print out a map
and
and get
mobile
And
audio
clubs.
retailers.
Audio
Clubs.
Yeah.
Or nightclubs.
I think all the people to be interviewed that you've already talked about, Larry and Chuck and Steve. Who's the guy?
If
Yeah.
the Who are still playing, show up for the show.
Yeah. Now,
I do need that endorsement.
there's an interesting statistic behind that. I think the loudest concert ever recorded was the Who concert,
I
right?
believe it.
126 decibels, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And the
They
bus.
should have put him in jail.
They
You
would,
could kill
right?
people at that level.
Well, the bus will render, I can go out right now and play Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, at 115 decibels, with pristine sound quality. So rock concert level. Of course, there's a big difference. That's 11 dB, no, yeah, it's 11 dB more. So that's like four to 8 times louder than my bus. So that's insane, because if you hear Wish You Were Here at 115, that's plenty.
And it looks like this really changed your life. I mean, you have a direction now that's probably completely different from what you ever thought of as a mechanical and a engineer for what you're doing.
The bus reflects one of those things in life. If you worked in the corporate world and everything is about money or time or market opportunity or sales volume or whatever, I got tired of that. And I wanted to do a project that had no limitations whatsoever. Not for time, not for money, not for effort. I didn't want somebody to tell me what I couldn't do. I wanted to express my art in a way that I felt was, and I wanted to take it to the absolute limit. Like, where are you going to get a better connection with WBT, right? You're not. Kimber Cable is fabulous cable, and just everything in the bus. So blessed to have sponsors that make the best, or very nearly the best, and be able to integrate that into a system and realize my dream, which was to make something with no limits whatsoever. In fact, maybe I was the limitation, because, and maybe that's how I wanted it to be.
I think you expanded it.
I would agree with Carl.
Yeah, so that's what the bus meant to me, is to sort of get away from what society is all about, which is consumerism and mass marketing and sales volume and margin, and focus on something of true artistic and scientific and engineering value, with no regard for cost or market potential or anything.
You're fortunate you were able to do that.
It helps to be married to the right woman, too. doesn't it?
Yeah, and Janet was amazingly
Amazing,
supportive.
really.
Yeah, couldn't have done it without her.
No.
Really, it's impossible.
So presumably the bus has high wife acceptance.
It, well, yeah, every woman, no matter how great, has limits. But yeah,
So when she gets in the bus and goes for pizza with you, she says, turn it down.
no, she loves it. She
She
wants
loves
to
it
hear
all.
Brazilian music.
That's cool.
If she has a bad day at work, we'll go out and get pizza,
Yeah.
and I'll turn on any number of Brazilian, and she'll be in the seat like this, and then suddenly her day turns a lot better.
Does she like Joe Bean?
She loves Jobim, so
Yeah.
do I, yeah. I go to, when we go to Rio, we go to a store called Toca del Vinicius,
Oh.
and it's dedicated to Vinicius and Jobim, and the owner of that store actually gets me rare recordings that I bring back. In fact, I brought Rosa Passos recordings back for Jim.
You brought me many, many recordings from
Yeah.
Brazil I could have never gotten otherwise.
Yeah. It's a great place for music. We go out and see live jazz in Weckl too when we go down. Yeah. So Janet's Brazilian culture and her enthusiasm and support.
Your wife is Brazilian?
Yeah.
Oh,
She-
from Rio?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think it would have been fun to hear the conversation when you told her, I'm quitting my job, jumping off the cliff when you found it.
Yes.
That would have been a fun conversation to hear.
Yes. Well, anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
John, thank you. This was fun.
It was.
Thank you for your attendance.